By the time Noah turned 1.5, the little boy was running, tumbling, climbing, shouting, and dancing to music on the television at full volume. He was vibrant, demanding, and always on the move. And Lila was exhausted. She woke at 5 a.m. every day, got Noah ready for the babysitter, worked her first job at a community center, came home for 2 hours to prepare dinner and clean the apartment, then left again for her evening shift at a restaurant. Meanwhile, Micah played video games. At first, Lila had tried to be understanding. "Take your time," she'd said. "It's hard finding steady work. I get it." But the time kept passing. Resumes were barely sent, interviews were few, excuses were many. He said full-time jobs were too stressful, that bosses were disrespectful, that he needed to get his mind right before committing to anything. Lila would return from her shift after midnight, and the glow of the TV would still illuminate Micah's face, controller in hand, Noah fast asleep in the next room. "What did you do today?" she asked once, her voice trembling with resentment. "I watched him. He cried all day. I couldn't even eat properly." The apartment was always messy. Dishes piled in the sink, bottles on the table, diapers in the bin for days. Lila came home to a war zone. She didn't want to nag. She hated the sound of her own voice repeating the same pleas. "Can you just pick up around here? Please take him out for a walk. You said you were going to apply to that warehouse job. What happened?" And each time, Micah grew colder. "I'm not your slave," he said once. "You think I'm useless? You don't know what I'm going through." Lila wanted to scream, "I'm drowning too." But instead, she just stayed quiet, kissed Noah goodnight, and cried in the bathroom behind a locked door. And then there was his mother. She called every day, sometimes more than once. She never asked how Lila was doing, never asked about Noah. She only asked Micah, "Did you eat anything today? You know you don't belong in that apartment, right? You need to come back home where someone takes care of you." She blamed Lila for Micah's depression, for his tired eyes, for the burden he carried. "He was never like this before he met you," she once said on speakerphone, not knowing Lila was standing right there. It was a Tuesday, the kind that began badly and only got worse. Noah had a fever and cried all night. Lila still had to go to work. She called off her second shift but barely made it through her first. Her boss asked, "Everything okay at home?" She nodded, tears barely held back. When she got off the bus that evening and stepped into the apartment, she immediately knew something was wrong. The apartment was deadly quiet. No TV, no Noah, no Micah. Lila called out, "Noah!" Her voice panicked. A faint cry came from the bedroom. She rushed in. Her baby was in the crib, flushed from fever but safe. Then she heard a strange sound from the kitchen. Micah stood at the counter, a bottle of bright blue coolant in one hand, unscrewing the cap with the other. Lila froze. "Micah, what are you doing?" He turned to her, his face ashen, eyes empty. "I can't do this anymore," he whispered. "Everyone wants something from me. You, my mom, this kid. I'm tired." "No, no, no," Lila whispered, running forward, wrestling the bottle from his hand, tears spilling from her face. "Let me go! Just let me go, Lila!" he shouted. She dropped the bottle, reached for her phone, and called 911 with trembling fingers. The police arrived in 5 minutes. The blue and red lights bathed the apartment walls. They took Micah without a struggle. He was sobbing by then, clutching his hoodie, repeating, "I just wanted it to stop." The paramedics checked Noah, then spoke gently to Lila as she stood there, shell-shocked, arms wrapped around herself, shaking. "He's going to be okay," they said. "He's in crisis. You did the right thing calling us." They put Micah on a stretcher. Lila tried to follow. "You can visit him tomorrow," one of the officers said. "He needs observation first. He's being admitted for psychiatric evaluation." And then they were gone. That night was the loneliest night of Lila's life. Noah clung to her chest, whimpering in his sleep. The silence in the apartment was heavy with guilt, fear, and questions without answers. Had she pushed him too far? Was she too hard on him? Had she failed to see how deep his pain went? But another voice inside her, cold and quiet, asked, "And where was he when you were falling apart, Lila?" The next afternoon, Lila dressed in clean clothes and took the train to the psychiatric ward at the hospital. She brought Noah with her, bundled in a jacket too big for his tiny frame. When she arrived, Micah's mother was already there, sitting at his bedside, stroking his hair like he was 10 years old. Micah looked gaunt, like a man who hadn't slept in weeks. Lila approached cautiously. Micah looked up and said, "Hey." His mother did not smile. She did not greet Lila. Instead, she turned to Micah and said loudly, "When they discharge you, you're coming home with me. That apartment is toxic. You don't belong there." Lila's heart cracked. Micah didn't respond. He just stared at the wall. Lila said quietly but firmly, "No, you're my husband. We have a child. You belong with us." His mother rose, her voice cold and controlled. "You pushed him to this. He's been unhappy for months. I knew this would happen. I begged him to get help," Lila snapped. "I worked 2 jobs while he sat in front of a TV. I called for help when he needed it. Where were you then?" Micah flinched. Noah started to cry. A nurse appeared at the door, sensing the tension. "We're going to need this room quiet, ladies." Micah said nothing. Lila looked at him, her heart in her throat. She whispered, "Are you coming home?" Micah stared at the floor. "I don't know." For 3 days, Micah remained under observation. During that time, Lila went home, packed an overnight bag, and took Noah to a friend's place. She just couldn't sleep in the apartment. The sight of the coolant bottle haunted her, and honestly, the echo of Micah's screams kept ringing in her ears. When the hospital called, letting her know that Micah had been discharged and gone to stay with his mother, Lila felt this strange mix of relief and devastation. She had not been enough to keep him, but maybe she had been too much. Maybe somehow both were true. Micah didn't come home that week, or the next. He only texted once. "I need space. I'm sorry." Lila didn't reply. She went back to work. She put Noah back with the babysitter. She cleaned the apartment from top to bottom, scrubbing the floor, vacuuming every corner, rearranging furniture. She was trying to cleanse the trauma, trying to take back the space as her own. But at night, she just sat in the silence and wondered, is this the end? Lila began attending a support group for young mothers, held weekly at a local community center. She listened to stories of postpartum depression, partners abandoning families, mental health breakdowns, and survival. And she realized she was not alone. And maybe more importantly, Micah wasn't either. She still loved him, but she just couldn't carry them both. Will Micah find healing at his mother's house? Will Lila have the strength to rebuild without him? Will he return to her? And if he does, will she let him? Or is this the moment that ends what began in sweetness, but couldn't survive the weight of too much, too soon? Find out in the next chapter, Lila abroad, choosing herself.